which eventually led me into somatic sexology, because I kept feeling like so much of the work that I was doing was helpful, and it was helping me make progress, but it still wasn't getting me into a place of embodiment. Like I wasn't actually living my truth. My body would still lock and have traumatic responses in certain areas, or it would feel like I had all the dots connected, but I still wasn't really where I wanted to be. And so that led me into the world of somatics. It led me into my own sexuality, healing that, reclaiming my own inner goddess and erotic self, and now into the work that I do with women today.
Super interesting journey that you have been on, and a great example for all of us. As you know, we've all had different roads that we've traveled in our journey, and there's things that we may be involved in right now for those of you guys listening out there, and you just have no idea how this will be able to be applied to things you'll be doing next week, next year, 5 years from now. And there's something, when you were highlighting your journey, I was like, oh my gosh, like I've been on like similar paths. Like I was telling a friend yesterday, there was a time where I was like 15 pounds heavier, like all muscle, than I am right now. And like, I really like my body right now. It's more natural. Like I don't have to work out 4 hours a day and carry 2 protein shakes with me in a cooler all day, every day. Like eat every 2 hours, set an alarm, take egg whites at 3 in the morning. Like I was like super crazy about it. So much more fun to just live a regular life.
So structured.
Yeah. So can totally relate there. But it's so interesting how this took you into your current path. And I just love to remind people that that's how it always is for all of us. Like, if you can just allow yourself to flow with the journey of life, and just be open to, what's next, where this might not be the end all be all, for any of us. At the same time, we'll be able to use this life experience for who knows what, going forward. So I love what you just highlighted. So with the field of somatic, because I left that part off, and as I was promoting, I like saying that too. But I want you to explain for anybody that is in the audience, like what a somatic sexologist, like how that came into your awareness. The light bulb came on, and you're like, this is awesome, and I want to share this with other humans. How did that all look?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I feel like I've had a lot of different turning points in my journey. And one of them was just like the biggest, fall. It was the biggest fall. It was the end of an abusive relationship that ended with a lot of sexual trauma and discomfort and lack of safety in my body. And so that just opened up a whole world of exploring my past and the pattern of abusive relationships that I kept finding myself in. Although I had the awareness, I couldn't stop the pattern until this one ending where it was so big. It was like the biggest boom that I faced. And I was like, okay, I can't ignore this. Like, this is the wake-up call. And so as I started to heal, I was doing a lot of talk therapy. I was doing a lot of counseling, my own personal growth work. I was working with coaches, but it was all cognitive. Like it was all talk therapy. It was cerebral, logical, and none of it was incorporating the body. And feminine, like all of the wisdom, all of our emotions, our feelings, trauma lives in the body. It doesn't live in our heads. And so it was about 6 months later where I felt like I had done the work. Like I was like, I've resolved this. I've got this out. I can re-enter intimate partnerships. And once I started to go back into relationships and trying to step into intimacy with partners, my body would just completely lock, and it surfaced these deeper layers that were not yet healed. And so that led me into, okay, like what is next? And it started to show me that sexuality was something that I never actually touched. Like I did all of the work. I was also studying spiritual psychology, but sexuality was something that had so much resistance and so much charge to me that I just kept like shoving it under the rug. Until then, where I was like, okay, there is this sexual trauma, there is a lack of safety in my body, like where do I go from here? And I heard about somatic sexology in a podcast, and it resonated so much. And what I find now, and what was kind of revealed to me then, was that the lack of pleasure and the disconnect from my sexuality had so much to do with all of the other struggles that I was facing in my life. Like previously I'd struggled with substance abuse, with those abusive relationships, with eating disorders. And what I found was that I was so much stuck energy in my sacral chakra. I was so disconnected from pleasure. I didn't know how to soften, to relax, to be in myself, to be with myself. And so there were so many layers that I needed to kind of move through. So the field of somatic sexology is a combination of somatic therapy and sexological body work. Sexology just means the study of relationships and sexuality. And somatics just means dealing directly with the body. So the practice that we do is very body focused. Like I mentioned before, the trauma lives in our tissue, not in our heads. And so basically what happens when we experience trauma, and I always like to preface this by saying that trauma is a range of things. Like I've definitely been one to discount the traumas that I've had, because I've told myself the story that, well, women have had it worse. There's so much worse sexual abuse out there, or there's so many worse environments growing up and during home. And so I would discount the experiences that I had, not realizing how they were actually limiting the embodiment that I wanted in this present moment. And so traumas can range from your mom, restricting food for you when you were younger, and maybe you witnessed her eating disorders, and so that was passed down into you. Like those are smaller traumas, and then bigger traumas could be death or loss of a loved one, or really severe like bodily injuries and things like that. But science says that the accumulation of small traumas will have the same psychological effects as bigger traumas. And so that was really what I started to look at. So with somatic sexology, like I was saying, when you have these traumatic experiences, everything is energy. So our emotions are energy, and when we don't process and when we don't complete the memory, it gets stuck and stored in our body. And so often we're moving through life with these unhealed memories, incomplete experiences where maybe, something was going really well and then it went really south and there was a trauma there. So with somatics, we're going back into those memories, we're completing them, we're changing the way that they went. So maybe if there was a sexual assault, we can go back into that. We can reprogram the way that it happened, but from a physical somatic level, and shift the way and clear the charge that we have attached to those experiences. And then the work that I do is a combination of that plus sexological body work. So it definitely has a tantric flavor to it. There's only 4 different ways to shut off the frontal cortex, which is the fear center. So that's responsible, it's like your ego, right? So those 4 ways are orgasm, coma, plant medicine, and hypnosis. So we're using orgasm and sexual energy, which is the most powerful energy available to us, to really change our psyche, to bring you into a place of embodiment, the feelings that you want to have. That's what we're bringing you into. And we're also really allowing the body to experience pleasure for what is typically the first time for most people, to really feel like honored, worshiped, to be able to calm the nervous system down, to feel safe, to really understand what it means to be in a healthy spiritual sexual experience with yourself, with others, and really feel safe in that kind of a container to fully let your erotic self come out and to be met with love ultimately.
I love everything you just described, and now you're speaking into my definite listening as far as my favorite part of the human experience, which, what I love for everybody to know, to be true, because when I discovered this, life just like opened up like crazy, is how, yes, we are all energy. I talk about that a lot. And at the same time, what a lot of people don't take into account until they become aware of this is that even though we have labels in the English language, for instance, like, we're happy, or we're loving, or we're bliss, euphoria, nirvana, ecstasy. We don't really have words that are stronger descriptors than that, but our energy can actually go to places beyond that if we allow it to. And a lot of people I know, until they become aware that they can do this and how, they don't allow their energy to go to those places, which that's where the full body, orgasms, and for guys, like being able to orgasm without actually ejaculating, things like this is where those things apply. And to be able to discover that stuff, like I've been to events, Julianne, where I've had like the EEG brain scanners on, where I could see like energy in the moment, where they might have said, well, think of a time in your life where it was like a really rough time, and like I was able to see that. And then think of a time where you're on top of the world, and I could see like my energy moving from there. So, for all of us, like what's really cool, and I love what you're doing, and I wasn't aware that this was a part of your work, which I love, like for someone to be able to allow their energy to go that way. And there is things traumas that are living in the body, how you're describing, you're opening me up to some new awarenesses, the way you describe that. It's awesome because you're clearing the path for people to be able to go into these amazing, parts of life that all of us are fully capable of experiencing whenever we allow ourselves to go there. And I just want everybody out there to know that this is possible for all of us. And, these amazing energetic realms where you're just having, like I like to say, when I'm experiencing life this way, I like to ask my partner, is there anybody else on the planet that you feel is having as much fun as we are right now? Because I'm so happy for them, because it can't be that many out of the 7.7 billion humans. Like, how many, like, percentage wise are really having this type of, you know, fun? Because you can feel, if your partner is in tune and you're in tune, like, you guys can go places together where it's like, whoa, like, you can feel their orgasm as much as yours, and you can orgasm at the same time. I mean, it's just like awesome stuff. So you're by listening with this part of the conversation for sure.
Exciting, and there's so much available there, and I find that most of us are unaware of what can be with our sexuality and where it can take us. Like, it can take us into these altered states. We can go into other dimensions. There's so much healing available there. Like, I always talk about how sexuality is the most potent area for growth, but it's also directly related to the relationship that we have with money. It's related to us processing our emotions, the way that we bring things into the world, like life creation, whether that's literal or figurative, like in business, I mean, birth and creations, ideas, physical life, all of these things are related in the sacral chakra. And so I find that there's a lack of information and education about what's possible with our bodies, especially female sexuality. And yeah, these experiences are just so beautiful.
Absolutely. No, I'm so like pro helping humanity just become aware of who and what all of us truly are, and knowing that, you know, whenever we become aware of something new, realizing that there's no like special breed of human where only they have the possibility of experiencing life this way. We're just all different expressions of just non-physical energy flowing through these physical expressions, called Julian, called Noel, called whoever you are out there. So we can really like be fascinated with all the possibilities of life. Like, there's universal law and then there's possibility. So if we can be open to what is out there and be ready for things that will help us on our journey wherever we are. None of us need to know all the secrets of the universe ever, and we won't. So, and it's not necessary, but what can attract to us the things, like, if you're attracted to this episode right now, when you're being introduced for the first time to Julianne or being reintroduced, there's something there most likely that if I were you, even if it was just following her on social media, that follow the energetic nudge, because you just never know like what awarenesses can come. And this is something that your life has led you to right now, and it's so interesting. Like, you put a couple of things in my awareness that are awesome, which I really appreciate. So fun conversation so far.